want your respiratory system to produce its own moisture, and you want your body to stay naturally moist. So if that's not happening because you're drying things up, so you're going to dry things up with some sort of medication, whether that's natural or a over-the-counter medication, and then you're going to use a nasal spray to restore the moisture. That just doesn't make any sense. Does that make sense to you? It's Dr. Gala here. We're going to talk today about seasonal allergies. I'm getting a lot of questions about seasonal allergies, how to get some relief without adding a lot of additional toxicity. So we're going to focus on the causes, some of the mistakes that I find people making regularly, and some natural remedies that you can turn to that won't increase the toxic load on your system. So what are some of the common causes of seasonal allergies? To start with, we may just already have an immune system that's hypervigilant, kind of already operating on overdrive. If you find that you've got a lot of food sensitivities and other things that are symptoms essentially of hyperactive immune system, then seasonal allergies may affect you worse than others. So we also find a lot of people that have increased seasonal allergies because they've relocated to a different geographic location. And for the first few seasons, your body may be trying to adjust to these new pathogens, essentially, is what your immune system sees them as, these new pathogens that it's got to learn to adapt to. So it's best if we can allow our immune system to learn and adapt, because over time, you will become less and less sensitive to the seasonality of these aggravators that show up in our world. So a lot of people find that they also have a worsening problem as they age. And this typically is due to the fact that we've got a toxic buildup that accumulates. And so our immune system is struggling to keep up. And again, with climate change, whether you're a climate change believer or not, I know, just here, for example, we definitely have 4 seasons here. It's not at all summer or even spring, but in the last couple of weeks, we've already started seeing pollen everywhere. And so in January, you wouldn't expect that. You would expect to see that in March or April, right? So, pollen season, the issues related to seasonal allergies are practically going on year round anymore. So what are some of the common mistakes people make when trying to relieve seasonal allergies? One of the most common things people do is turn to some over-the-counter medication. I had a patient in the last couple of weeks, again, really struggling with the seasonal allergy thing. She's got an immune system that's kind of already struggling to keep up. And we've got her on a detox protocol. So we are trying to push her body to get rid of this additional toxic burden or toxic load so that her immune system can better handle just the normal toxins that it encounters. But she was turning to a natural remedy for allergy relief and complaining of symptoms of dry mouth, frequent urination, constipation, dryness, overall dryness symptoms. And that's what these allergy relief medications do. Whether it's all natural or a true medication, you are essentially trying to dry up the problem. And as I explained to her, as we dry it up, we basically leave the trash in our bodies and it's going to accumulate over time. So I do not recommend that you take any sort of medication to dry it up. I know that's not what you want to hear. I wish I had better news for you, but actually what we want to do is we want to encourage the immune system to learn and adapt. We want to encourage the mucus, and as I also say, better out than in. So blow your nose a zillion times if you have to, invest in some really high quality Kleenex, and just get those toxins out of your body. In this clip, a couple of doctors are recommending exactly what I don't recommend. They're recommending that you basically take medication long-term. And so all this is going to do is create a bunch of long-term symptoms that patients are going to come to me and want help with. And I'm going to tell them that the only way they're going to get some relief is to stop drying themselves up with these medications.
So it's a good idea to start early. Like if you have pollen allergy in the spring, I usually say have the patients start pre-medicating with antihistamine, nasal spray, or eye drops before the season starts.
I usually recommend as soon as they start seeing even a little bit of the pollen that they're allergic to. Especially severe seasonal allergy sufferers, we have them take them even 2 weeks in advance, just so they get used to taking that.
And patient asks us, is it safe to take the medication every day? I would say, if you take the medication according to how we recommend it, it is safe and effective. And it's important to know that when you take your medication, such as a combination of oral antihistamine and nasal spray together every day, it achieves a better efficacy than taking it sporadically, only when you have symptoms.
So what do you think? Do you subscribe to the just take medication long-term and deal with the consequences? I get really frustrated with patients when that's their approach, and they get frustrated with me because they don't want to hear what I have to say. And that is that you have to encourage your immune system to get strong and to build the resilience. Another thing I regularly hear, here's another clip that I'll share with you, is that it's safe to use nasal sprays. And so it can be helpful to keep those nasal passages moist. Moisture definitely helps the nasal passages to capture those toxins as they're moving around, but that's not going to relieve your allergy symptoms, and might actually make the problem worse long term. You want your respiratory system to produce its own moisture, and you want your body to stay naturally moist. So if that's not happening because you're drying things up, so you're going to dry things up with some sort of medication, whether that's natural or a over-the-counter medication, and then you're going to use a nasal spray to restore the moisture. That just doesn't make any sense. Does that make sense to you?
Nasal decongestant sprays can work like a charm, but they are not meant for long-term treatment of allergy symptoms and can cause serious harm if not used properly. These sprays contain chemicals that shrink the enlarged blood vessels that are causing your congestion. After more than a few days' use, those blood vessels can become dependent on the drugs, causing you to need to use more and more of it to get the same results. This is called the rebound phenomenon, and over time, it can lead to chronic sinusitis and other serious nasal problems.
So one of the other things that people tend to do is just continue doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And so a lot of times it's dietary toxins that are creating a histamine reaction. We're already dealing with these food sensitivities and reactions when it's not allergy season. And then allergy season comes along. We've just barely been managing to this point, And then it's the straw that broke the camel's back. And so the reaction feels like it's over the top and that it's the seasonal allergy that needs to be managed. But what I encourage people to do is be really extra vigilant about their diet, really notice those things that you're consuming that tend to spike a reaction and do your best to eliminate it. We really encourage that you reduce or eliminate the big four, and that is dairy, gluten, yeast, and sugar. Here's a clip I found that I thought was really interesting. This man found that he was having a histamine reaction from foods that he was eating, and that when he eliminated those foods, his body was much more able to handle the effects of seasonal allergies. So let him be some inspiration for you. It really can make a difference.
And then I just did some research, found the video by Chris Masterjohn, and the way he described it, which seems accurate in my experience, there's a bucket and certain things you do are going to add to that bucket until it overflows and you get the seasonal allergies, the sinus infections, things like that. So there is a certain percentage of people that their bucket can just be filled up by, like, you know, environmental allergies. This doesn't matter. They're just always going to have that type of stuff going on. It's not diet related at all. They just can't deal with the
pollen
environment.
in the air, whatever.
So those people exist for sure. I'm not one of those people because I've never had this in my life before. Dietary intolerances add to that. So like if you have a dairy allergy, casein allergy, something like that, that can add to the bucket. And then histamines is what, for me, 100% pushed me over the edge. I would say my bucket was like barely even filled up with anything. It was just all histamines. So you've probably heard of antihistamines, like Benadryl.
Yeah.
And that is one other thing that tipped me off. When I took a Benadryl one night and I just slept like a baby,
You
I
felt
could
fabulous.
breathe again. I felt amazing. So I'm like, okay, I think it's histamine related.
How do you know if it's food sensitivities that are creating a problem? Well, one of the main signs or symptoms are sinus issues, digestion issues, skin issues. These are all really strong symptoms, including headaches as well, strong symptoms that you are dealing with food sensitivities. And if those kinds of symptoms are happening on a regular basis, then don't be surprised when things will really go haywire when seasonal allergies set in. When we need our immune system to work overtime, we've got to make sure that we're not working overtime in the other areas of our life. We need more rest, not less rest. And so you're going to have to back off on your schedule. You're going to have to get more rest. The side effect, one of the many side effects of these allergy relief medications is drowsiness. And so, you know, that's the last thing people typically want, is to feel drowsy and like they need a nap. And so maybe that's the one positive side effect that I would give you for these allergy relief medications, that maybe they will force you to take a nap and get some additional rest. I would say, though, that the rest you get naturally that doesn't have to be induced by medication is going to provide a lot more benefit for you. So what do I suggest to help you relieve allergy symptoms? Well, the first thing you need to do is boost your immune system. So this is one of the reasons why I don't suggest that you take supplements long-term, because when you need them, like a time like now, you need to be able to add them in, not already be taking them. Your system basically has learned how to ignore them. Your immune system has gotten lazy, and now you've got nowhere to go. If you're not supplementing with vitamin C and zinc on an ongoing basis, now's the time to add it. Zinc works as an ionophore and helps our cells to take in the additional nutrients and to help like clear cellular debris. So adding zinc at the first signs of an issue can be really helpful. You can also megadose vitamin C. I like to use a powdered form of vitamin C so that you can put it in water. It helps to kind of take more, and it's more absorbable that way. You can take vitamin C to bowel tolerance. So if it creates diarrhea or really loose stools, you're going to need to back off. That's a sign that you've taken too much. But vitamin C is water soluble, so it won't tend to build up in our systems. I will say, though, that there is no reason to take too much vitamin C. That's not going to help the situation. You want to take vitamin C when it's necessary, when your body needs a little extra antioxidant boost. Another thing you can do is get some regular movement. It can really help if you can get outdoors and get some natural daylight, sunshine on your skin. But if you're finding that it's just too triggering for your allergies to be outdoors, then you'll have to find some sort of movement indoors. I don't recommend extreme exercise. It can put additional stress on your system. I would much rather have you do yoga, stretching. That's going to actually recharge your battery and give you more energy to work with, rather than further depleting and draining the resources that you're already struggling to keep up with. I found this other clip that I thought was really interesting, talking about nutritional yeast and how nutritional yeast can actually help sort of jumpstart, shock essentially our immune system to better be able to handle these kind of allergens. And so nutritional yeast is a food substance, not necessarily the yeast that we're used to baking with or having in baked goods. So it's a little bit of a different ingredient, if you will, but you might try it. I will say that if you have any sort of bowel disease, you lean towards a lot of food sensitivities, you have irritable bowel, anything like along those lines, you definitely do not want to be adding additional yeast. You need to eliminate yeast as much as possible. One of the other major factors is your indoor air quality. This is the air that you have control over. So you want to make sure that you've got some really high quality indoor air purifier. I will link to a couple of the ones that I recommend in the video description somewhere, or you can find it on my website in the resource section. The indoor air quality is greatly improved by regular vacuuming, but don't use a vacuum that doesn't have a really high quality HEPA filter, because you're basically just stirring all that dust up and putting it right back in the air. If you haven't changed your filter in your HVAC system, then you want to make sure you do that and use a really high quality HEPA filter in your HVAC system as well. And don't forget your car and some of the other environments, your work environment. If you spend a lot of time at work, do the best you can to control your environment where you're spending a lot of time breathing a lot of air. Another thing I recommend and use is homeopathic remedies. These remedies are not medications. They're more like an allergy shot. An allergy shot is not a medication. An allergy shot really just introduces the components of the allergen into your system so that your immune system is kind of jump-started to learn to adapt and to deal with it. Homeopathics work much more gently, but in the same way. So I use homeopathic remedies to get that job done without having to turn to shots. Homeopathic remedies are very easy to take. I use my bioenergetic scanning system and create an imprint that is specifically designed to address that patient's situation. But you might find some homeopathic remedies that you can try that are more generic and designed to address whatever you believe is causing your issues with seasonal allergies. And as we bring this to a close, what are some of the things that you really need to remember when seasonal allergies start to rear their nasty little heads? It can be helpful to remember that it's a sign that your immune system is working. Mucus is what your body creates to help trap all those toxins and get them out of your body. So if you are suppressing your mucus, then you're fighting against your body's own immune system, and all of those toxins are going to stay in your body. Eventually, we're going to have to detox them and get them out one way or the other. So I just encourage you to let your body do its natural thing. And if you recall, we talked about using nasal sprays, but instead of using nasal sprays, I recommend that you use steam. Steam can really help to keep things moist. It heats things up. It jumpstarts your immune system. And so I just love a good steam. One of the DIY things you can do is just take a pot and a big like soup pot, just put maybe an inch of water in the bottom of it, and you can put a few drops of eucalyptus oil or some sort of other essential oil. That's really great. I use Olbas oil, OLBAS, and just swear by it. It's really helpful when I've got any sort of congestion as well. But you can put a few drops of that in the oil, heat the oil up, and then just pull a towel over your head. And, you know, you've got to get the right distance from the pot so that it's not too hot, but it's really great just to breathe in that warm, moist air and really clear out your respiratory system. And remember, symptoms are clues. So as you are experiencing these symptoms, they are giving you a lot of great information that you can use to improve your overall health and well-being. As a reminder, common symptoms are headaches, sinus issues, digestive issues, and skin problems, including skin eruptions of any sort. Another thing to remember is that the color of your mucus can be telling. So sometimes the color of your mucus will change. If the color goes to a really like darker yellow, even going towards green, that may be a sign that you need to do something a little more extreme to address it. But most of the time with seasonal allergies, the mucus is clear or almost clear. And in that case, it's really just annoying more than a real health concern. And then lastly, I would say that you just need to invest in some good supplies. So one of those is a few boxes of really high quality Kleenex. If your skin tends to be sensitive anyway, then you definitely don't want to be aggravating it and turning your nose raw with blowing it 100 times in a few days. And then I mentioned the Olbas oil. The Olbas oil can be really helpful to relieve issues of like even just clearing your throat too much and getting your throat irritated. So I use the Olbas oil, again, not all the time, only when I really need it, but when I need it, it works fantastic. And then just good on you. Celebrate the fact that you are hanging in there and you are supporting your immune system and helping it to learn and grow and adapt, and trusting the process that you will have improved overall health and well-being if you can stay the course. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.